Good day. My name is Peter Stradham. I'm an independent financial advisor and I practice in South Africa. I've been in the financial planning advice industry since the early 1980s, so that gives us well over 30 years, during which time I've concentrated mainly on assisting people in their personal financial planning, but I've also been very active in the public financial education arena, to the extent that I ran my own financial advisory radio program for a good number of years, and my son and I have also recently set up an online planning resource called myfinplan.co.za, which you may like to take a look at. I've decided to take all the experience that I've gained over the last number of years and distill it into an educational resource, and I've decided to use Udemy. And this video is designed just to give you some kind of insight and an introduction into personal financial and planning and what we're looking at achieving by having our educational training resources available through Udemy. We structure the course contents in such a way as to make a very complex financial discipline understandable. And when I say understandable, I'm talking about understandable to most folks, the man in the street, and then also to those who would like to roll up their sleeves and dig a bit deeper, and I'll get onto that a bit later. We've laid out the content in what I like to call a pyramid fashion, where we start at the top of the pyramid, where you'll find the more elementary content. And as we work our way down the pyramid, so the content becomes more detailed and complex. However far down the pyramid you choose to progress in terms of complexity, of course, our goal is to equip you to a level of understanding that will enable you to start taking your financial future into your own hands, and to educate you to a point where you'll be able to engage with a suitably qualified financial planning professional and have a better understanding of this complex subject. Please note that this course, whilst many of its principles will apply anywhere in the world, is designed primarily for South Africans living in South Africa. If we look at the course structure, and going back to the pyramid terminology that I used, at the top of the pyramid we've got our elementary level course, which is designed for the man in the street, or for the layman as some people might term it. And I've called that course, which is now available on the Udemy platform, Financial Planning, Exploring the Basics. We'll soon be working on our next level of education material, and this is will be the intermediate level, and that's obviously for the more curious, and I'm calling that Financial Planning Demystified. This is for the person who, as I referred to earlier, someone who wants to roll up their sleeves and get more into the topic. And then finally, hopefully in the not too distant future, we will put together a series of modules which would be our advanced level course, which is designed for the more analytical types, and that I'm going to be calling Financial Planning Take Control. If you look at the gear wheels on the left, if you look at the role that financial education can play, anyone who takes an interest in their own financial well-being and educates themselves to the point that this course will enable you to do, leads to a far higher degree and level of financial control, which in turn leads, hopefully, to financial independence. At a very elementary and basic level, you can break financial planning down into three basic component parts: estate planning, retirement planning, and investment planning. And I'll talk about these topics in a little bit more detail, not too much, because obviously the detail will be covered in the course, but just to give you an insight into what the course content will be. So on the estate planning side of things, we'll be looking at how to structure your personal estate, make sure that debts are paid off, make sure there's enough money in the estate to pay special bequests, how you can effectively use trusts, and also what planning you need to do to take care of any business interests that you may have. We'll also look at family income planning, where you provide an income and capital for your family should something unforeseen happen to you. Looking at retirement planning, we'll be looking at saving for retirement, and then of course investing at and during retirement. This would take into account such things as corporate benefits. And for those of you where the terminology doesn't fit, we're talking about the benefits that an employer would traditionally provide, such as a pension fund or a provident fund. We'd look at the tax implications of the various instruments and products that could be used in saving for retirement. And then as far as investing at and during retirement is concerned, looking at how to structure your income, how to structure your investments so as to provide you with an inflation-proofed or inflation-linked income, whilst at the same time giving you access to capital, and always keeping an eye on tax and making sure that your investments and your income are tax effective. Underpinning retirement, goes without saying, is investment planning. And investments can be broken down into two basic categories, one being discretionary investments, and these are the investments that you would make on your own from a personal point of view, and then the compulsory investments that would traditionally be provided by your employer, such as, once again, pension funds, provident funds, preservation funds, and then retirement annuities. We'll cover all of these aspects in the courses. Just to give you a bit of a foretaste of what some of these different disciplines will entail, let's look at estate planning. The absolute foundation stone or cornerstone of any financial plan from an estate planning point of view is a will. So we'll look at what a will does and why you should have a will, the importance of a will, how to appoint beneficiaries, how to draft an effective will, and also draft it in such a way that it's executable, which means that the will does the job that it's designed to do with a minimum of fuss and delay. Looking at structuring your estate, we look at estate liquidity, which merely means how much money will be in the estate, how much money will the estate need, is there a shortfall, how do we deal with that shortfall? Well, and shortfalls come about in terms of being able to settle debts such as bonds and any outstanding accounts on motor vehicles, the estate expenses, any special bequests, and then the use of trusts, particularly from a minor's point of view, and then, as I mentioned earlier, how to take care of your business interests. If you are a shareholder or partner in a business, how do you ensure that fair value for that business is actually translates into an asset for your surviving spouse and children? And then from a family income point of view, we'd look at making provision for children's education, to take care of the family's basic income needs and also their capital needs. Looking at retirement planning, we'll break that down into three compartments as well. Let's first look at retirement savings. So one of the first objectives would be to determine what I like to call your retirement gap. How much money will you have when you retire? How much money would you need to have in order to be able to provide you with the sort of income you need? And the difference between what you will have and what you should have is what I call the retirement gap. And obviously the earlier you sit down and do this kind of exercise and determine that retirement gap, the more chance you have of actually bridging that gap and hopefully in some cases eliminating it completely, so that the transition from a working life into retirement is easy, it's painless, and you become financially independent. We would also look at retirement savings disciplines in terms of you're working, you're on a pension fund, then you resign. There's always the temptation of taking that withdrawal amount and blowing it, perhaps to settle a debt or go overseas. But unfortunately, a lot of people tend to lose sight of the fundamental purpose of retirement savings. So they're tempted to spend this money and not replace it, which obviously creates a problem from a retirement gap point of view. And then looking at retirement funds and the different instruments that are available, pension and provident funds, for example. Then at retirement we determine your income needs, your capital needs, how often you need to replace motor cars, if you're in a position where perhaps children are overseas and you need to travel from time to time, or you need to buy a new accommodation. All these types of things, we take that into account as well. Then investing your money in such a way as to be able to provide you with an inflation-proofed income so that at least you can maintain your lifestyle. Then of course there's medical expenses. People tend to forget that the cost of medical expenses is enormous. I've had experience recently where the income that they're generating, even though they planned, is going mainly on medical expenses, and one has to really pay close attention to that. And then we look at investment solutions, and by that I'm talking about the different products that are out there, broken down into discretionary investments, compulsory investments. So we'd look at things like unit trusts, endowments, savings accounts, retirement annuities, retirement funds, and so on. Then from an investment planning point of view, we'd look at investment goals. We'd break your goals into short term, which is less than 2 years, medium term, 3 to 5 years, and then long term, which I see as being greater than 5 years. Then we need to look at investment risk. We would then determine your risk profile. When I say we would determine, the course content is designed to assist you in being able to understand these concepts. Obviously you would need to partner with a suitably qualified person to do these exercises, but these are the kinds of things that need to be taken care of and taken into consideration. Matching your investment risk to your risk profile and to your needs. These are three very different things, and to match these things up so that you're not staying awake at night worrying about what's happening in the Far East and the stock markets are falling, or the exchange rates taking a bit of a hiding. You need to understand the impact of all of these things. You need to determine to what extent you can tolerate this kind of volatility. Then you also need to determine what your investment growth needs or outcomes need to be in order for your retirement plan to work. Then we look at asset classes, and it starts getting very interesting when we get into investment planning. Asset classes, essentially from a South African point of view, we see that as being cash, bonds, property, equities, and then offshore investments. And then how to mix the asset classes to create what one can call a balanced investment portfolio to match your needs and your risk profile. There's an enormous amount of science that goes in behind these kinds of exercises, and I would urge you, once you've equipped yourself to understand these concepts, don't think that you can do it on your own. You need to partner with someone whose daily function revolves around this kind of discipline. So this presentation really was designed to achieve two main objectives: to give you some insights into the content of the complete course, which, as I say, is now available, and to give you a basic understanding of some of the principles of personal financial planning. Please remember, none of the content in this presentation is to be regarded as being the rendering of financial advice, and you're advised to consult with a suitably qualified and licensed financial planning professional. I certainly hope that you found this introductory presentation useful, and we look forward to seeing you on our courses in the not too distant future.